is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome in, everybody. Another One World Away podcast here on Kansas City Sports Network, brought to you by the fine folks at Emprise Bank. Eternally grateful for their continued support. Jordan Foote, Josh Keiser, Joel Penfield here to talk regular season baseball. The Royals are back. Baseball is back. We are extremely excited to chat. Guys, we'll start with Joel. How's it going, man?
I'm doing great. I've been watching nonstop baseball pretty much since Thursday afternoon. It's been fantastic to just turn on a ball game, starting with the East Coast games and it's kind of working your way east to west. I fell asleep on the couch last night watching Mariners Guardians. So that woke up very confused at midnight, but the Mariners won, so all is well. But it's just been awesome. I love this so much. And I don't know, you guys have seen it tonight, but my MVP pick in the NL kind of got hot. 3 home runs and a grand slam tonight for Bryce Harper. So
good.
We're looking good here.
Josh, what's
Speaking of Bryce Harper, he is, I need it because my fantasy team with him on it is not doing so hot. But I did pick up the other Bryce in the NL, Bryce Terang, who has like 6 stolen bases, which is something I did not think was in his repertoire. 2 more tonight. So it's a good night to be a Bryce. It's a good night to be a Royals fan. Hey. We got baseball back, boys. I love it.
Again, extremely grateful that baseball's back. Extremely grateful for Emprise Bank for sponsoring the show and continuing their support of One World Away. Big impact in the local community. This is going to have a big impact whether we wanted to or not, regardless of what side we're on. The stadium vote. We talked literally just a peek behind the curtain here. We're recording it at about 8:15, 8:20 on Tuesday evening. This pod presumably going to go up on Wednesday. It was a 56.5% no vote, a 43.5% yes vote for, obviously, downtown stadium implications, the continuation of the sales tax that's going to go towards benefiting the Chiefs and the Royals. It's going to be... This is not what I expected coming into it. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to expand too much on it, I guess I would say. But very, very clearly, plenty more votes to count. Things can change by Monday morning. Those results are going to be different, I would assume, in either direction. Not trying to sway people that listen. That's not really our job here. We're just trying to cover it as down the middle as we can. This is something that literally has been anything but down the middle in recent months. It's been very reminiscent of, kind of a presidential election type thing. 2 sides going back and forth against each other and kind of a lack of clarity and stuff like that. So we all agree here on this podcast. We think that downtown baseball would be fun. The sales tax has already been there. It's probably not the end of the world if it continues. People were already paying it. It's not going to make a massive difference in their lives. But also, there are businesses that are getting run out. There are downsides to it. I'm not trying to downplay that whatsoever. But I guess I will kick it to Josh, who provided those statistics. And probably bad podcasting on my part. These numbers will very, very clearly, again, change by the time you're listening to this. But initial thoughts and kind of what do you expect coming in? And then what do you think as of 8:21 p.m. Central Standard on Tuesday night?
Yeah, I think we need to caveat that with those percentages were probably mostly absentee votes. The official first announcement will be here in about 20 minutes. So that's the first caveat. Second caveat is my expectations about this were, I thought it was going to be close. So I still have that expectation. I could see both sides like you guys. I personally am pretty indifferent about it. I could see the merit of it, but I personally don't necessarily like downtown by any means, but it could be a cool spot, and I can see the merit and what's going on around it. But it's just kind of a weird situation that I am ready to be done with. It's even, regardless of this vote, it's not going to be done with. There's still just so many different streets that this thing's going to go down even after the vote is counted. So not anticipating this being done by any means, but at least we get to turn the page a little bit and maybe get a break from it for a little bit. That'd be great.
I think, I'm looking forward to the break and it not being every third tweet that I see when I get on social media, vote yes or vote no. And being a Kansas resident, there's only so much of an opinion that I can have because I'm not the one voting on this. So I've kind of stayed out of it. I haven't talked about it. I'm kind of just fence sitting, waiting for results so we can move forward one way or the other. So I know that's a bad answer. I know that's probably an annoying answer and probably a couple of high rules from people listening, but
yeah,
I have no opinion. I just want to see this shit be done. Just be honest.
Well, and we don't live in Jackson County, so like I'm not trying to downplay the significance of the situation.
Like, yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's a very unique situation. I empathize, sympathize, all that stuff with everybody. I'm going to read a tweet from Alex Gold of 610 Sports Radio in Kansas City, 8:15 p.m. right before we jumped on. He said he talked to a few people here at Vote Yes on one watch party. They were expecting the absentee numbers in Jackson County. Josh kind of mentioned that to be even higher for Vote No. They expected 65 or 70%. So maybe, and this could be spin, as his coworker, I suppose Carrington Harrison, CDOT does great work, noted, there's been a ton of, even when you think something is true or even when you think something is valid coming from a side, you have to think twice about it a little bit. And it really does. And I hate to compare it to a real election for a presidency, but that's what it's felt like. Literally these two sides kind of going back and forth and the animosity and campaigning against each other. And you're wondering if this data is valid or not. And this side's saying this, and this is what it's going to benefit this crowd. Like, I want it to be over as well. Obviously, by the time you're listening to this, we will have a much more solidified answer. And even by the time we're done with this podcast, we kind of joked about that before we jumped on to record. But I think it's good for the Royals to move. I think it's going to be fun for them. I think that it's going to usher in a new era of Royals baseball. I think John Sherman is right to have his kind of expectancies and his plans for the team. I also totally understand you don't want small business X to get displaced. You don't want this to change. I totally get that. Totally understandable. Not trying to alienate anybody from listening. So there's no natural segue. Not that it's bad news. Just, keeping people up to date without getting too crazy. The Royals have capped off some games, regular season games, by the way, that actually since the last time we talked. They've lost 4-1 in the season opener against the Twins, lost 5-1, beat the crap out of them 11-0 to cap that off, played 6-4, tough loss to Baltimore on April Fool's Day. It was no joke, actually happened. Then a pretty good win, 4-1 on Tuesday as we're recording this. So, guys, I have notes. I'm going to kick it to you, Josh, probably to jump off here. Kind of some stats or developments or overall thoughts on the first few games for the Kansas City Baseball Royals in 2024.
How can Cole Reagans be a Cy Young candidate when he's not even remotely close to the best pitcher on the
I can mute you. I can mute you, by the way. I still have
Leave. Get out of here.
Continue.
Just discount Skip Bayless. Calm down.
I mean, Cole Reagans, 6 innings pitched, 2 earned runs in, was it 9 or 10 Ks? It was 9 Ks. Rhys Singer had the 10, didn't he? It's just wild to be in a world that has 5 starts from a Royal starting rotation where that quality start is probably the worst of the 5. That is very weird. I don't know what to do with my hands. That is a very strange world that we're living in, but boy, is it fun. Coming into the tonight's game, the starting pitcher has been 29.8% K rate, 4th in the majors, 6.4% walk rate, 8th in the majors, a 23.4% K minus walk, 4th in the majors, a 0.79 whip, 3rd in the majors, 3.4 FIP, 4th in the majors. So here we are. The Royals are 2-3. I think there's an argument to be made that they could easily be 5-0 if just some of the weird things that happened over the last baseball things that happened over the last few games go differently. We could be talking about a 5-0 team here. So I have been very encouraged by what we've seen so far, especially from the starting rotation.
So there's kind of 2 avenues how you could take the way these first 5 games have gone for the Royals. And glass half full, glass half empty. I think you can kind of take it either way. The glass half full side is the Royals have played the Twins and the Orioles, who are two teams that are probably going to be in the playoffs or in the playoff hunt. Orioles for sure, Twins most, probably. Central's weird, but probably. And they have played them very well through 5 games and kept themselves competitive in these games into the late innings and have given themselves opportunities to win all these games with great pitching and, enough guys are hitting that the offense is okay. And you've given yourself opportunities. And where the Royals are at right now as they are trying to build towards competing, I'm cool. Like, I think that's a good way to look at it. The counter is, God dog it, man. The Royals have had opportunities to win all of these games and have not executed well enough in those late innings. And that's the reason why you lose some of these games. It's the lack of ability to get a runner over and get them in. Hitting with runners in scoring position, a big concern last year and early in the year. It has been hit or miss, no pun intended, but not ideal. 1 for 9 last night against the Orioles. Yeah, bases loaded, 1 out. You can't come through. You lose a game. And then the bullpen, who I think the bullpen generally has been okay. Will Smith gets blown up in his first outing. Chris Stratton has a rough outing in the 8th. You lose both of those games. Nick Anderson gives up a walk-off home run. You have to win. The margins are so thin in Major League Baseball, even if it's a long season, that little things like that are going to cost you games. And if the Royals want to be more competitive and start moving towards that contention window, they have to be better in the margins. And they have to move toward, make that margin for error a little bit bigger. That's like the thing. Cause like, it's that fine, guy. So I'm not trying to say that like I have massive concerns or red flags, but they have played, I think 2 things are true. They have played well, but have also they've also done poorly in the things that you have to be good at in order to be competitive. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I talked to somebody about this on radio on Tuesday. God, I sound like a chotch. Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
You just did it.
I've done it every Tuesday at 1 o'clock for like 3 years. So like, it's just a normal.
We get it.
thing.
We get it. Hollywood.
Oh my God.
It's such a big deal, Jordan. Thanks for reminding us.
No. It just literally was on radio. And I was like, man, the difference. And Joel makes a good point. Like, yes, they play 162 games. And I think that, in football and basketball, we talk about this a little bit more. Like, you can't give these teams, that much margin for error. Like, if they're better than you, you have to be on your P's and Q's in order to win. We don't think about that as much in baseball because they play 162 games, because they play multi-game series against teams. It's not a home and home against an NBA team. It's not, you play the Broncos 3 times in 3 weeks in the AFC West. Like, it's literally, you're playing this team every day for 4 days, or every day for 3 days, or 3 out of 4 days, whatever it is. Like, no matter what, you have to still be under P's and Q's. And a Baltimore team that we think can compete for and win the division and maybe even compete for the AL pennant this year if things break right for them, like, you have to be on top of your shit, for lack of a better term. And like, if you aren't, that's what separates the teams that make the playoffs versus the teams that are watching it at home. And for a team like the Royals that has the expectation, for better or worse, and obviously none of us expected them necessarily to compete for a playoff spot this year, but be that next tier probably of competitive team. A good preface for the rest of this podcast, it's been less than a full week. We are not trying to make any season-long conclusions about this team. A lot of it's going to change, but it adds up. Like, if they do that one time next week and then a time the week after that, like, if you're doing that every week for 30 weeks, however long the MLB season is, 25, it's going to make a difference. So you can't afford to waste games. And I think that under a previous redacted manager, there was kind of a specific kind of emphasis on, you have to win this game. You have to go, pedal to the metal and win, and compete, grind. Now the mindset's still there, but it's more of an expectation. It's not a, you guys are really going to have to work your ass off to win. It's a, we are good enough to win this game. Let's go prove ourselves right, or whatever it's going to be. So I didn't expect to rant that much, I guess, on Joel's point, but my only takeaway from the first half week of Royals baseball is they simultaneously provided some hope, Josh, and also kind of emphasized and doubled down on maybe they're not ready yet, and they kind of flashed that through 1 week, but also it's been literally 5 games.
Mm-hmm. I was doing the math here, and I think, if my math is correct, we basically played the first half of the first game in the NFL, I think is the equivalent of 5 games in the MLB. So take what you want from that first half and run with it. But the couple of things that jumped out to me as I was kind of contemplating, looking around, there's been 2 games that were really like, I'd call them a dick kick loss, where they get walked off last night, and then the implosion in the 9th inning against the Twins on Saturday, and seeing how they respond to that went a long ways with what I kind of took away from this first week.
Completely agree.
Both of those responses. What's that?
No, I completely agree. Because last year, that type of loss would have spurred a 5-game losing streak.
100%.
To be able to bounce back like that was very impressive, especially with your 5-starter out there to win that game.
Yes.
I had zero expectation the Royals were going to win tonight on Tuesday, and then it's okay, go salvage the final game with Reagan's on the mound, but now you got a chance to win a series, so it changes
against an AL East winning team. I mean, that Baltimore lineup is nasty, so if they're able to do that, if they even get the game in, I haven't seen the weather lately, but it was looking pretty gnarly, so we'll have to see. It's a noon game, so enjoy that while you try to look busy at your office work. The second thing was the offense has been very weird, to say the least. Has been very inconsistent, I think is a word that we could probably use, but they're profiling as a power hitting team that doesn't walk. It's very contact oriented stuff, but they're third going into the nice game. They were third in hard hit percentage in the majors, first in fly ball percentage. I don't know where the hell that came from. They are 5th in home run per fly ball percentage, so they're hitting it up in the air and it's going a long ways. They're slugging .481, which is 6th in the majors, but at the same time, the floor is not even close to there. They're last in line drive percentage of 13.9, 23rd in OBP, shocking, I know, but the BABIP is 247, which is nowhere near the usual 300, which you think that they're getting kind of unlucky, and they have a 513 OPS with runners in scoring position. That's very bad. That is 29th. Thank God for the White Sox being absolutely putrid all around. Real bad. With runners in scoring position, they were striking out like 56% of the time. Awesome stat. I hate the White Sox, and I love that stat. So it's weird. It's a weird identity shift in what we're used to seeing from this Royals offense. It's coming from the same guys we've been seeing for the last 2 years too. So you kind of wonder if this is sustainable, something to monitor further up, because this is a completely different identity than what we're used to seeing these guys do.
This is a good stopping point, I think. This was 2 bullet points out of, I can't even begin to count how 75. Many on this podcast. Yeah, we are going to speed it up and talk a little bit more about why things simultaneously do and don't matter with this Royals season right after this break.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Joel Penfield, Josh Keiser, Jordan Foote here. Eternally grateful, as always, for you guys tuning in, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google. I think we actually had a Stitcher conversation. That might not be a thing anymore. But anyway, however you get your podcasts, YouTube, tuning into the video, super appreciative of you guys. Producer Nick was nice enough to let us know Stitcher's dead. So I'm sorry if you are that was your thing. It wasn't my thing, but you never know. The Kansas City Royals are not quite neck deep in the regular season. They just got their toes wet a little bit. They dipped in the pool, wanted to see what the temperature was. Some of the guys were into it. Some of the guys weren't. They said they'll just lounge around instead of jumping into the pool. Brian O'Keefe is one that jumped in head first, presumably with Austin Nola on the injured list. We'll talk about that with injury updates before we jump into our player spotlights. Brian O'Keefe, 30 years old, last year in AAA, but the Mariners won Joel Penfield might be a little bit familiar with Brian O'Keefe and what he offers. 93 WRC plus, played 8 games at the big league level, 13 WRC plus. So older prospect, if you want to call him a prospect, hasn't done a ton at the big league level. I guess you could think of a CJ Alexander type player, a Dairon Blanco type player, like a guy that just kind of hung out in the minor leagues. Paulo Orlando, if you want to think back that far, like in terms of the vibes, like an older guy that's an older quote unquote prospect, career minor leaguer, got some time in the bigs. This is Austin Nola insurance, and you need that in AAA, that added depth. And I believe it was Andy Rogers that noted if something happened to Salvador Perez and then Freddie Fermin was thrust into the starting lineup, maybe you're not too comfortable in a current prospect kind of coming up. Maybe that's an option. So minor league contract, only notable transaction, nothing too crazy. Joel, you might have some sort of insight on this guy that one of us doesn't. What do you think about Brian O'Keefe on a minor league deal?
This is entirely AAA depth, and that's fine. Like, if Austin Nola got hurt, you got to have a second, another catcher down there with Logan Porter, so this makes sense. He's not going to make it to the big leagues unless there's a bunch of injuries. I don't even know if you can call it a cup of coffee at the big league level. It might be an espresso shot. He just kind of is what he is, and the fact that he's down there hanging around, he's 30 years old in AAA, been playing in the minors for the majority of his career. There's something to be said about a guy that just wants to grind and do that. So, could be a good guy to just have in the locker room for a little while.
It makes me wonder what's going on and how severe the oblique strain for Austin Nola is, if that's the case so far. Austin Nola, rooting for the guy. He's been around for a while, had some pretty solid seasons, but it kind of came off this signing came off the heels of him, going down and missing time. So I do, obviously that's connected. Hopefully Nola is not down for long, but those oblique strains can kind of be pretty brutal. Even when you come back. So, yeah.
We've got a live update. And again, I know this isn't terrific podcasting because these numbers are going to keep evolving, but we're going to try to keep you as much involved as we can as we keep going. As of 8:36, which is about 3 minutes before we are going with the soundbite, No has 42.5 thousand votes. Yes has 29. So, this is different than what I expected. I'm just going to keep saying that. I thought that initially, yes was almost a shoo-in to win, and then the closer we got, I was like, okay, I see why No would compete. And they're not only competing, they are kind of beating the crap out of Yes right now, and that's probably going to change a little bit. It's going to be different, but those are the transactions. That's the only one the Royals have really been doing. Injury updates real quick. The things that aren't going to change, at least as we're recording this podcast, Michael Massey, who's been dealing with some lower back tightness, playing in simulated games, tracking for a rehab assignment. Good news for him, good news for the team. Carlos Hernandez throwing bullpens. Jake Brentz and Josh Taylor are dealing with respective hamstring and bicep injuries. From what I've read and gathered and heard, Brent's outlook looks a lot more optimistic than the Taylor outlook right now. Brent's hamstrings are obviously very tricky, but Taylor is dealing with like a neuro-related, like a nerve thing that they haven't particularly gotten completely solved, and like his is a lot more tricky to figure out than Brent's. Brent seems like a designated time frame. You ramp up, you get back going, you pitch a little bit in the simulated game, you do a bullpen or two, then you're back. Taylor seems like a wait and see, and maybe tomorrow morning he wakes up and feels fine, but like also maybe it lingers for a little bit. In addition to clearly the Austin Nola oblique strain, that those are tricky. Those are always annoying for players. It kind of can derail the beginning of a season for people. So I'll kick it to Josh. Any immediate thoughts on some injury situations that seem to be simultaneously progressing and also kind of along the timeline we thought?
I don't mean to downplay what's going on with Brentz and Taylor. I'm rooting for both of those guys, and I want to see them in Kansas City. I want to see them do well. The big ones, the big ramifications for now and both later are both Massey and Hernandez, and it seems like they're progressing as much as they should. Again, no disrespect to Brinson Taylor. I'm a big fan of both those guys. Probably one of the only Josh Taylor defenders out there. But I do think, though, for what this team needs right now, Carlos Hernandez and Massey progressing is a good thing. So that's where I'm at.
I don't have anything to add. I think that's a pretty good way to look at it. I will say, I think Adam Frazier's been fine. So I don't have any issue there.
How much does that hurt you to say? How much is it?
Not at all. No, I'm glad to be wrong.
You can be honest. You can be honest.
No, I just wonder what the roster crunch then looks like.
Yeah.
Because it's weird because if they send Lofton down, then your two second basemen are both left-handed, so there's no platoon opportunity unless you want to put Hampson there, and I don't think they're going to do that as often as they want, I don't think they want to do that very often is the right way to say that. But then also, you can't option Hampson because I think he's out, and because of the way he was non-tendered, I don't think he can go to the minor leagues. And Lofton had a really good game today. He was 2 with a walk and an RBI. Complete opposite game than what he had on Monday. So I don't know if that's the guy you send down, and he's only up because of Massey. It'll be interesting to see how they work that.
Yep. 58.42% is the most recent update. Look, guys, I'm sorry. I can't do the math while I'm speaking at the same time. It's been several years since I've done a math class, so we'll just keep it pushing here. We actually have to do... Yes, this is not a math podcast or a breaking news podcast. If you want to...
so many numbers. How do we claim we're not a math podcast?
Well, converting those numbers to a percentage, two different things.
That is fair.
Breaking news and up-to-date breakdowns. You go to the breaking news podcast for Chiefs news, which has been very good as of late. We do have some math to do during our player spotlights, and I guess I'll jump in here very quickly. Hunter Renfroe, not good numbers so far. He's 0 for 11 in 3 games.
He's 0 for the season.
Tuesday's play. Yeah, 4 strikeouts. Last season, he had a 92 WRC plus. I'm going to keep my player deep dives pretty quick, I think, and succinct if I can, which is always a challenge. But 7 games into the 2023 campaign, which... if he posted a 92 WRC plus this year, I don't think people would be too upset with what he did generally. Obviously, compared to the contract, you could have qualms with it, but it wouldn't be a disaster of a deal, which is a bad sales pitch, by the way. But 7 games into last year, 4 for 31, 20 WRC plus. The next month of play, he hit 280 with a 142 WRC plus. He struck out 21% of the time. So the K rate generally the same. The production at the plate quite a bit better. He started off very, very, very poorly in 7 games last season. If he collects 4 hits in the next 3 games, he's still kind of tracking to be on that same timeline. But I expect him to have a really good month after that. Not necessarily per se. But I don't think it's fair for anyone to be calling for his head or saying that he sucks or any of that stuff based on, if you're confirming your priors, okay, whatever. Still, a little short-sighted, but my very quick take that didn't turn out to be very quick on Hunter Renfroe is just give him a minute. Let's see what happens, and then maybe a week from now, if he still hasn't got a hit, we could have a very serious conversation. But right now, 0 for 11 happens to the best of them. I am not too worried. It is not ideal timing, but Joel, I am not tripping out in terms of what he's done so far, or I guess hasn't done.
So he did get super unlucky tonight. He hit a ball 375 feet to left that in 29 out of 30 ballparks would have been a home run. But because of that stupid freaking wall in Baltimore, it was a flyout. So that would have gotten him off the schneid. And I think we're having a different conversation because sometimes it's like in basketball when you're on a cold streak. You just need to see one go down to start it up. I think he just needs the worst doinker of all time to fall over a second baseman's head and the floodgates open. But I will say this, though. The at-bats haven't been very good. The contact has been very poor outside of the one tonight. He's missing pitches down the middle. I'm a little concerned because it's not like he's hitting into a bunch of hard hit bad luck.
Sure.
So it's something to monitor. I think like these dudes are too good. They're not going to go 0 for the season, but 5 games, not a lot of bats that are super competitive is a little bit concerning. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it'll come around, but I don't know if it's going to be maybe he's a streaky guy this season, and that, he's to kind of start riding the hot hand, but it seems like the fans are very anxious for him to start producing, because there are guys that could potentially take his spot and take reps away from him, and at this point, it's been earned so far. So, how to Renfroe, go get him back.
Yep. My pitcher spotlight will just go, I guess, both for all of us here, is Seth Lugo. He had a quality start in his Royals debut, 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, and he pitched a shutout. He did really well. Something I noticed, and again, it's 1 start into the year, it's 4 games for player X. Like, it's not a big deal, but I did notice looking at his Savant page, 35 fastballs. Last year, it was up 3% over the year before. It was up about 4 or 5% in start number 1 of this year. The curveball went from 34% in 2022 to 29% last year to 26%. He's relying on a little bit less this season so far. Opponents didn't get a hit off of it. And then the changeup, it was 1.7% in 2022, threw it about 6% of the time last season, then about 9% in his Royals debut. Ground ball rate, 45-46% the past couple seasons, 50% in his Royals debut. So a lot of numbers for not a math podcast. Not a math podcast, damn it. But
it's not a math pod, but a stat pod is different because we're smart enough to look at a spreadsheet and look at numbers. But doing actual computation on air, not ideal.
Yes. You ask me to look at a spreadsheet, I can generally, I think, figure out what's going on. You ask me to calculate based on that, no chance. Absolutely
nerd.
Yes. So
what a nerd.
I had a math class, by the way. My final math class I took in college, it was junior year. Our professor only let us use Excel. We had to do all the calculations on Excel. We had to do all the assignments on Excel. I was like, brother, I'm not working for effing PFF. I am going to write about sports, talk about sports. I'm not going to work for redacted focus. So Seth Lugo, he had a good debut. The pitch mix continues to trend in the direction it confirmed prior. So that's kind of what this season debut pod is all about for some people. And for Seth Lugo, apparently he wanted to confirm his priors from 2023 that started back in 2022 when he began this kind of transition to entertaining life as a starter. So Josh, I think he had a pretty promising debut and about all you could expect from him.
Yep, exactly what I wanted to see. His slow-mos of his slider and his curve were absolute, baseball porn. They were so sexy and hypnotizing, I should say, to be a little less 12-year-old boyish. But it was very good to see him get out to a good start. I think he could go and do wonders for this rotation. I've kind of been harping on that since we signed him, that he could have ripple effects that could be way more than just a good starting pitcher. So I'm excited that he did go out and show out his first one. Let's keep seeing it, keep this ball rolling.
I love that. We talk about how a guy like that raises the floor of the rotation significantly, and he proved exactly that. The type of stuff that he goes out there with, it's not overpowering. There's nothing that's it's not like watching Cole Reagan's pitch. It's entirely different. It is truly the art of pitching. And look, man, I want to get this strikeout, but I only got a little bit left in the tank. I'm going to throw this sinker and get a ground ball, get us out of the inning and go. And that's what he did. He knew when he needed to just go get that one pitch out and when to attack a hitter a different way and work all of his pitches to all 4 quadrants. It is super impressive watching him pitch. And I think it's the kind of stuff that's not really going to slump unless the velo really goes, but I don't think that'll be the case because it's 92 to 93. So it really is more about being able to pitch and not just lay the fastball in there because you can blow by guys.
Yeah. Joel, what do you have for hitters and pitchers for this past week?
So I'm just taking the easy route, and I really don't care. I'm going to talk about Bobby Witt Jr. Tough night tonight on Tuesday, 0 for 4 with a hit by pitch and a couple strikeouts. But the previous 4 games, I mean, I don't think you could ask for much more from him. I think he has 7 hits on the season and 6 are extra base hits, 2 doubles, a triple, 2 home runs, and then the 1 single. He's just freaking incredible, man. Like we talked about there being another gear in there, and I think that gear is getting to the power with more regularity to all fields. He was driving balls out to right center that would be home runs in most other ballparks. Instead, he had to settle for triples and doubles at Kauffman over the weekend against the Twins. And the 2 home runs he hit, like, though it is very Mike Troutish, like if you miss down to Bobby Witt, down and in, or just down in the zone to Bobby Witt Jr., he's going to park it. And he didn't hit any cheapies either. He was hitting 430 plus to dead center on, I don't know how you hit a ball that far where those were located.
Yes.
And that's just one of those where you look back and you're looking at other people around the league that cover the sport are like, oh shit, Bobby Witt Jr. is like it's not just like we have this awesome player and only we know about him. Like, he's becoming a superstar nationally. And I was listening to some stuff before the season on some national podcasts, talking about him being a dark horse MVP candidate. And I was like, okay, maybe, but I'm not gonna think that may be like a 90th percentile outcome. I don't know if it is. Like, I don't know if it is. It might be more like 70th. He's been that good, and if he's got to cut down the strikeouts a little, but it's also early in the season, so a 2 strikeout game completely makes the numbers look weird. So I think it'll level out as the season goes. But the power speed combo is he's just incredible. I'm almost running out of superlatives and words to describe how awesome it is watching that guy play. And then
phenomenal.
Yeah, go ahead.
His strength. Joel, you hit it on the head. Where he hit that ball, the pitch location, and where the ball ended up should not be possible. The amount of strength that he has, along with the speed, both of those 2 things are elite in and of themselves. But the fact that they are combined in the same person, and that person happens to wear a Royals uniform, which he will be wearing for at least 7 years moving forward, I cannot tell you how exciting that is. It is truly like, if we're talking Patrick Mahomes comps here, which I'm not, he's made a couple errors, so maybe he might be more like Josh Allen.
Whoa. Well, I mean, that's still really, I know team students won't want to hear this. That's really, like, if Patrick Mahomes didn't exist, everyone would be like slobbing the knob of Josh Allen.
And they still do.
Yes. Yeah. Either way.
Yeah.
Either way.
And it doesn't matter. Like Bobby Witt Jr. is not going to, if he makes mistakes, it's not going to lose you the game like Josh Allen probably would.
Sure.
So that's the comp. Like, he does still make a little bit, like, he still bites off a little bit more than he should actually be chewing. But sometimes that's a good thing. Being aggressive on the base pass is a good thing. Just do it in a way that doesn't get us kind of shot in the foot. So it is just very exciting to see that Bobby Witt Jr. is a Royal for the foreseeable future, and it seems like he does have another gear. So it's very fun.
Joel, I want to get this back to you very quickly, but we'll provide an update probably at the end of the podcast. Mayor Q, Quentin Lucas, just tweeted out, and I quote, "People of Kansas City and Jackson County love the Chiefs and Royals. Today they rejected plans and processes they found inadequate. Over the months ahead, I look forward to working with the Chiefs and Royals to build a stronger, more open and collaborative process that will ensure the teams, turn events, and investments remain in Kansas City for generations to come." So if that's not a concession speech, I don't know what is. Barring a divine intervention type situation, and admittedly a bit of a shock to someone like me who might have just been out to lunch on the whole thing via not wanting to be involved in it as much. That could have been my fault, but I am a little bit surprised that they got this much momentum for vote no, and I'm going to say good for them just as much as I'm going to say it sucks for vote yes. I'm genuinely not trying to push people in either direction. Joel, you have one more, I guess, more positive thing to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought about, when I did the Google Doc this morning, I had Brady Singer down as my guy. to talk about, and I'm going to, but I almost changed to Alec Marsh, and he deserves a lot of credit too. He was fantastic today, beyond any expectation I had for what he was going to be, and I'll probably have some sort of Twitter deep dive on him probably out tomorrow or Thursday. But Brady Singer, when the Royals really needed it, after the first 2 games slipping away from them, 7 innings, only a few hits, 10 strikeouts, 2 walks, was absolutely dominant. And he featured that 4-seam fastball that we heard about all offseason, talked about in Springdale, that we got to see live when he said it was his best pitch. And he went out and he threw it 14 times in this game, threw a ton of sliders, 53. The thing that was interesting to me was the usage of the sinker and the fastball and how we might see it moving forward. He threw 27 sinkers. He threw 22 of them to righties. And then he threw all 14 of his 4-seam fastballs to lefties. So that might be the game plan, to get the lefties off the sinker that runs back into their barrel based on the movement. Shout out to Marcus from Royals Weekly for pointing that out to me when I tweeted out like how stark that difference was, and that's why. So it was good to see him working that, feeling confident in that pitch. Still didn't throw a ton of changeups, but if he's able to work that 4-seam in, it's a different element. It's a different pitch to get guys off the sinker and slider. So it is very encouraging. The fastball velocity was up from last year. It sat around 93. He was touching 94, which was a really good sign. He was around 90, 91, 92 at times last year, which is a little more concerning. So the velo's back. He looked confident, and he was just absolutely slicing and dicing a Minnesota lineup that is going to be very good. The expected numbers were fine as well. Expected ERA, expected batting average was all good. Didn't really get hit super hard. So very encouraging signs. And he, again, I don't think he raises the ceiling of the rotation significantly. We've talked about what Waka and Lugo provide for the floor. If we get good Singer with regularity, then this raises the ceiling of what the Royals can pull out every 5th day. And it makes it a lot more palatable every 5th day as well.
Yep, completely agree. I think the floor lies within the Waka and the Lugo, and then the ceiling absolutely lies within the other 3 guys. So I think I completely agree. Also, interesting, it's small sample size, but the 4 changeups that he threw, 3 were to Carlos Santana batting from the left side, and the other one was also to a lefty. So seems like that is also a target that they are potentially going to work on as well. But I got my spotlights. There's one good one and one not so good one. My good one is Kyle Isbell has had a solid start going into the game tonight. He's batting 308. OBP was also 308, so he hasn't taken a walk or anything yet, and his slug is 615, which is not something you would expect from Kyle Isbell. But somehow his expected stats are supposed to be even better. His expected batting average is 448. His expected slug is 687 instead of 615. So he got robbed again tonight of another hit. So he is off to a hot start. And we talked about some of the other guys like MJ Melendez, Michael Garcia. If they make developmental steps, they could mean a lot to this lineup. And I really think that Kyle Isbell going under the radar, and if this is real, and even if he's just like a 260, 310, 420 guy with like a 730 OPS and great defense, that is like Kevin Kiermaier. That is Cedric Mullins for Baltimore. That is a 2 to 3.5 win player that is batting 9th in your lineup and playing a great center field. That can go for ages in this lineup. It could mean so much in making this, turning the lineup over again, bringing it back to the top of the order, and bringing them back into the fold, scoring more runs that way. So if Kyle Isbell is hitting on cylinders this season, I think we should be really be getting into some really good games from the offense.
I just want to make a point before we move on. I know they weren't on any of our guys to profile, but you mentioned Michael Garcia and MJ Melendez as kind of hinge points in the lineup that can help, that can kind of swing in either direction. I know the overall numbers for Michael Garcia are not spectacular, but he's hitting the ball with more regularity with power. I don't think he has a single yet this year. He's got a couple home runs and a couple doubles. And he talked about post-game catching the ball out front more and getting to his power that way, which is a significant development to me, because if he wasn't going to have power and having a third base, like, what does that mean? If he, like, I put an over-under at 13.5 home runs. If he gets to, let's just say 15 home runs over the course of a season, he's already got 2. So it's well within reach, especially with the way he's hitting the ball. With his defense, that's a 4.5 win player, at least. And then MJ has put together great at-bats. He hasn't had a home run yet, but is doing the same thing, kind of spraying the ball everywhere and hitting the ball hard with more regularity. He's not striking out a ton. He's taking a couple walks. The at-bats look a lot better for him. So those are some guys that they really get going. It makes the lineup that much better. And Bobby Witt Jr. doesn't have to feel that I have to do everything sort of thing that we've seen him do a couple times this year. It's not concerning, but we've seen a couple of times where he definitely kind of gets out of his box a little bit to try and do a little more than he needs to. If there are more guys in the lineup that are hitting with regularity, then we're in a good spot.
Actually, I haven't been paying attention very much. So Bobby Witt's been very good. MJ's been good. Michael Garcia, Kyle's Bell, all have been very good. Salvi's hit a couple bombs. So the Royals are 5-0, right? That's we got good starting rotation.
If it was that easy, buddy, we wouldn't. If it was that easy, buddy, every game would be played on a spreadsheet. Nerd.
Yeah, I like that idea. Let's put them all on a spreadsheet, except not Excel because Jordan doesn't like them.
I don't mind Excel. The Royals do play a handful of games not on a spreadsheet in real life coming up. I'm looking ahead.
Hang on, hold on. I got one. I got my other spotlight. The not so good one. Just real quick. Stratton we've seen him twice. The velo has been noticeably down for the 2 appearances, like 2 to 4 miles per hour per pitch. It has been down. He is 33. Yep. 5.57 ERA. Oh, I'm sorry. His ERA is worse, but his velo is around where it was in 2019. That year, he had a 5.57 ERA with a 4.92 WHIP. He also missed a couple of months to injuries, 2 different injuries that year. He's 33 years old. He signed a 2-year deal with this organization for $8 million. So not crazy amount of money if we don't get much from him, but something to monitor is that velo, because both of those appearances were in decent weather. So you can't really blame that either. So something to keep an eye on, but hopefully he gets it figured out. It's just kind of loosening him back up. That's all.
I don't have too much to add. I think that Joel said earlier in the podcast, I don't remember the exact quote, but like something to watch, like something to keep an eye on. I think it was Renfroe. It's like I'm watching, not quite the like microscope level watching. Like I have this on the slide, but you know, I'm vaguely monitoring it. The Chiefs and Royals declined to have any media availability on Tuesday night for pretty obvious and predictable reasons, but the Royals do have to keep chugging along, and they will on Wednesday. Cole Reagans and Corbin Burns in the series finale, if I have that correct, and then a 4-game series against. Yes, that's going to go fun.
To be a deal fest.
Yes. Then after that, a 4-game series against the White Sox. Seth Lugo, Brady Singer, Michael Wacha, and Alec Marsh are the projected starters for that, and then a 3-game series against the Astros. We will talk, I believe, like right when they're kicking off that series against Houston with Cole Reagans, Seth Lugo, and Brady Singer. The Royals have plenty of interesting matchups coming up and kind of tagging along with the theme of matchups, something that Josh brought up, kind of some bets, real or fake. It's a little bit harder to look into the future and say, okay, this player prop is going to do this. Like, it's a lot tougher. So we made up, at least I definitely made up. Mine is very not factual, by the way, just so we're clear, for the upcoming week of Royals baseball. I'll kick it off. I have Salvador Perez under half a home run, 0.5 home runs in the White Sox series, career 721 OPS, 25 home runs in 170 games against the White Sox. That's a home run every 6.8 games. 2023, 717 OPS, 1 home run. 2022, 621 OPS and 2 home runs. He has not faced Mike Soroka. I believe Eric Fetty is also on there. Chris Flexen, I think the qualification was maybe one matchup against him. Then Garrett Crochet, he just has not faced those guys a lot, so maybe that works in his advantage. But I am fading Salvador Perez after a first good handful of games in the White Sox series, and that is my bet of the podcast. That is definitely fake and probably not going to happen, so expect 4 home runs in 4 games.
Our bets are very funny to me, by the way.
Yes, they're great. I love them.
Still laughing about them. I'll do mine, also a fade. So that's also very good. I got Singer as under 5.5 Ks for his start against, it's Fetty. Yeah, it's that Fetty game against the White Sox. He went 7 innings pitched with 10 Ks versus Minnesota on Sunday. The Chicago White Sox are putrid. They are very bad. They strike out a lot, but in all the starts that he has gone 7 innings pitched, he's done it 17 times in his career. The following game, he only averaged 4.8 strikeouts in that game. So give me under 5.5 strikeouts for Brady Singer on that matchup. Just fading, and this is also happiness insurance because I think he's going to go out there and shove, truthfully. But just go with the numbers on this one.
I have no numbers to back up mine. This is purely a vibes pick, and I'm going Hunter Renfroe over 4.5 hits by the time we talk next. So this is not just the White Sox series. This is by the time the second game, or maybe the first game of the Houston series is done. So that's over the next 5, possibly 6 games. So that's how I'm looking at this. Purely because these dudes are big leaguers. They're not going to go 0 for the season. So he's going to get off the schneid at some point. And these are the next 4 matchups. It's Mike Soroka, who really has not pitched in like 2.5 or 3 years because of multiple injuries. So who knows what you're really going to get from him. Eric Fetty's coming back from the KBO. I have no idea what you're going to get from him. Chris Flexen is fine, but not very good. And then Garrett Crochet is getting used to starting again. And it's a lefty, which Renfroe is better against. So there might be some favorable matchups in there. And I'm asking, and then Christian Javier against for the Houston Astros, who's fine. So I don't even need him to get a hit a game, but 5 hits in the next. Actually, it would be a hit a game. Shit. But
hey, you can get 2 hits in one of the games.
Exactly. Like it's 5 hits in 5 games. I think that is perfectly feasible for a big leaguer, and I hope so because if he doesn't get 5 hits in the next 5 games, we might be having an uncomfortable conversation. Actually, it would be 6 because we have the finale tomorrow.
I lied, apparently. Like, right after I said the Royals and Chiefs didn't speak, Mark Donovan and John Sherman most definitely did speak at the vote yes rally. Yeah, I presume it was the vote yes part because Alex Gold tweeted it, and that's where he was kind of posted up. So we don't have the direct quotes for that. Again, I'm sorry that I couldn't listen and podcast and pay attention to Joel at the same time. However, again, I think most people, not to generalize, but a lot of the people that were listening to this podcast were probably either in the I don't care segment like we were kind of in, or the I'm pushing for a vote yes because I think it would be fun section. If you were in vote no, that is entirely okay. But John Sherman kind of said, thanks to producer Nick, that the Royals are going to take some time to reflect and process these results. And I believe it was Clark Hunt that spoke at the owners' meetings and said, not worried that it's not going to pass, but you have to weigh the alternatives. If it doesn't, that's kind of the messaging you would expect from both sides. So I will keep an eye on that, to say the least. Josh.
Hold on. Chiefs team president Mark Donovan said, "We feel we put forth the best offer for Jackson County. We will look to do what is best in the interest of our fans and our organization as we move Kansas forward." That is not great news. Okay, because if the Chiefs felt like they put that they feel like they mailed this entire thing in. I was not impressed by the Chiefs' plans or their approach to this at all. I thought it was very good and good timing for the Royals to make sure that everybody understood that they were hitched to the Chiefs on this. They did a very good job, and then the Chiefs were just like, "Wait, what's going on? What's happening? I don't know what's happening." You wanted some renderings, activations.
Here you go.
Healers, end zone suites. Go.
Well, as a Wyandotte County resident, and like we're going way far into the future here, presumably. But if they did move out to the Legends, one of those teams, presumably the Chiefs, by the way, I would just assume that.
Mm-hmm.
But as a Wyandotte County resident, I was kind of like, well, I don't live in Jackson County. I don't care. Downtown baseball sounds good. Whatever. Yes, it would be my money in theory, but I was trying to think of a way to make it sound like as normal as possible, but like that tax won't make a big difference in my life, I guess, which is a very fortunate position to be in, I guess you could say, because there are people that it does make a big difference for that are very valid situations. Not at all trying to discount those, but if it did come to that, I think I'd probably be in the same boat as like, okay, whatever they want to do. Like, I think that's just kind of the person I am. Like, whatever the mass wants to do, let them have it as long as it doesn't affect me in a major way. And again, the tax probably would have some sort of impact in terms of the infrastructure of the county and it's a whole nother ball of wax to get into. So I'm going to put a pin in that until the very end of the podcast. I think we have a very brief minor league update. Columbia doesn't play until Friday. Quad Cities doesn't play until Friday. Arkansas doesn't play until Friday. Omaha 2-1 entering Tuesday's play. Had a 6-game series against Columbus. Tuesday got postponed. I have a couple just very, very brief stats, but I do want to kick it back to Joel in case he wants to eliminate one of those with any initial thoughts on the Omaha season so far in AAA.
The only one that I have is Nick Prado had a 195 WRC plus during that weekend. Strikeout rate was pretty low, and he was walking a fair amount too. Good to see that maybe the approach and some of the things we saw in spring training was not just exclusive to Surprise Arizona, and it's carrying over a little bit. Would like to see what he does over the next week before we think about getting him back to Kansas City, depending on how some other performances go. But good to see from him because he started off really poorly in Omaha last year, struck out a bunch. So this is a good sign for him that really the maturation of a hitter is coming along for him, and maybe there's still something there for him.
Josh, what do you think?
I think of interest to the big league club. Daniel Lynch had an outing where he went 5 innings pitched, 4 earned runs on 9 hits, 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts. So not at all what you want to see Daniel Lynch doing in AAA. Not at all what he wants to be seeing his line looking like in AAA. So hopefully he can turn that around and start making his upward swing and knocking the door down to get back to the rotation.
You guys absolutely will not believe this. You're going to believe this, by the way. Nick Prado and Daniel Lynch were my 2 bullet points for stats that I was hoping you guys would knock out. So that was perfect.
CJ Alexander hit a ball very far.
Yes.
Very far.
He's good at that. Every once in a while.
He's very good.
We will, guys, I promise, like, we really, really intended on hitting minor leagues. Like, there's not anything.
There's not much.
Next week,
they haven't even
released
the projected rosters, right? We haven't even had rosters yet.
Next week, we will have, at least something to talk about for the other teams. The week after that, we'll probably get going. I guess that kind of brings us to the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 minutes of this podcast. The closing thoughts and the nugget of the week. I'm going to take it. John Becker of Fangraphs reviewed payrolls, roster resource data for 2023 and 24. Payroll increases year over year. It's no secret that the Kansas City Baseball Royals increased their payroll from 2023 to 2024, 27% increase from $91 million to $116, trailing only the LA Dodgers at 33%, the Arizona Diamondbacks at 36%, and the Baltimore Orioles at 48%, which is pretty insane, by the way. Three, the San Diego Padres down 34% in last place, going from 255, which is a pretty sizable amount, to 167. And the Royals compared to the AL Central, buddy, let me give you some numbers here. The Royals, obviously, number 3. The Guardians up 0.4%, rank 18th. That means I have 3 teams left here. The Tigers down 10%, ranked 22nd. The White Sox down 18%, ranked 27th. The Minnesota Twins down 20%, who are still the favorites in the AL Central, who I think are going to win the AL Central, ranked 29th. So there are cases of teams that don't spend money, that shed payroll, that are very, conservative with their funds, that can be successful. But you have to have like a very elite scouting department, a very elite pitching factory, a very elite luck bank that you dig into. Like, there has to be something. The Royals have historically not got lucky in the lottery. That's been happening. Elite scouting department, elite anything. The Royals, some people from the outside could say they got lucky when they made the World Series. That was a blend, I think, though, of elite homegrown talent, elite mid-season transaction acquisitions, elite timing, luck, the entire thing. So the Royals ranking 3rd, they did try. You could argue, whether it was for the vote yes or not. That doesn't appear to be happening. I think more so towards, it'd be stupid to say that didn't factor into it at all, I think, but also I genuinely believe they were trying to compete a little bit more in a vulnerable division and look no further than some teams that aren't spending worth a shit. So, Joel, any thoughts on that, or you can just kind of segue to your nugget of the week?
Yeah, I don't have much to add on yours, but it is super interesting that the rest of the AL Central is kind of sit pat in the Royals. We're like, yep, we're just going to spend a crap ton. So mine, it's really early, so this is not completely stable yet, but it's just interesting to look at. The Stuff Plus data, which is the pitching metric that looks at every sort of pitch type and then breaks it down like weighted runs created plus, where 100 is league average or better, and then anything below 100 is below league average by whatever that percentage is. And this takes into account spin rate, spin efficiency, induced vertical break, horizontal break, all that stuff that is way above my head. But I know how to read a graph. So just some interesting ones. Cole Reagans has the best fastball on the team at 126 Stuff Plus. They do not have Brady Singer's four-seam fastball yet. Actually, they do. It's rated at a 72, and the sinker was a 61. But again, it's only 6 innings. It can jump up. It stabilizes around 10 to 15 innings. So one more outing will have a little more of an indication. The best pitch on the entire team is Cole Reagan's slider at a 149. James MacArthur's curveball is a 127. You mentioned Chris Stratton. Yeah, the fastball and the sinker were not great for him at 78 and 77, but his slider and his curveball were really good, 114 and 126 respectively. So I imagine he is going to favor those pitches a little more moving forward. If he goes super slider heavy, it would make sense. Angel Zerpa, 106 sub plus on the sinker and a 107 on the slider, which is interesting to see. Jordan Lyles, 120 on the slider. Matt Sauer, 124. I think we're noticing a theme here. The Royals have good sliders, which, hey, that works. That is a testament to development and scouting and coaching to be able to have that good type of secondary. Michael Wacha's changeup is a 123, which is best on the team. Brady Singer's, it's only 4 pitches. It was worked 4 times, but the sub plus on it was a 122. So, hey, Brady, throw it more. It was good. Keep doing it. So I know it's a lot of numbers, and I know it may not make a ton of sense. We're going to see it a little bit more. As I may do another look at this at the end of April once that kind of stabilizes and guys get more innings. Because some of this, like Jordan Lyles is throwing 1 inning, Matt Sauer's throwing 1 inning, so is Angel Zerpa. So, it's hard to tell right now, but it's just interesting to look at early on how the Royals' stuff is, because I think they pitch well, all things considered, through the first 5 games. So we'll see how it goes.
Strides being made. I love to see that.
Yeah, that's all I got for that. I'm with you.
My nugget is that Bobby Witt is going to be on the Dig It Deep podcast on Wednesday. Eric Hosmer's podcast. They get a little insert teaser that they released today on Tuesday. And it sounded like Hosmer came away very impressed with Bobby Witt. I'm very much looking forward to that interview. I did a couple of those interviews today just to see what it was like. And they did, I mean, there's been some really good conversations that they've had. There was the first one, the kind of introduction to Eric Hosmer, kind of going through his career with the awesome Salvi story at Subway. That was very, very good. And then they had Ron Washington and Eric Young Sr., and that was a very, very good conversation as well. So I haven't gotten to the Alonso and Manny Machado one yet, and then there was one more that I missed. But I'm very much looking forward to Bobby Witt Jr.'s deep dive conversation with Hosmer and co. So check that out after you check out the One Royal Way podcast coming at you the same day. We're competing against Eric Hosmer now, boys.
Perfect plug. Do you guys like Manny Machado? By the way, I know he's like a very polarizing figure. I'm a big fan. Yeah, I like him. Josh?
Seems like an a-hole.
Josh Donaldson, thoughts?
Big a-hole. No, seems like he is. I'm
not a huge Josh Donaldson fan. I had no issue with Machado. I know that he had that little run of stupid crap early in his career, but he came up to the big leagues at like 19 or 20. So the maturation process took a little bit because, well, he was a kid when he came up to the big leagues. He got all of that out of his system by the time his brain fully developed at 26. Mm-hmm. So I think he's fine, and he's gotten breaded up multiple times now. So I think he's cool, and he's a really good player. When he gets a no doubt home run, that swing is majestic.
Not much better.
Yeah, mm-hmm. There are certain guys that just like
Harper, Trout, Vlad,
Matt Olson. Olson's no doubt swing is majestic.
Yeah. Salvador Perez is up there, I think. There's a lot. But like also probably like 20. So I don't know if that's a lot or not. In the context of this podcast, 20 could be a lot. 20 couldn't mean shit. It's been a very numbers-centric podcast, guys. I promise we're going to try to not throw as many numbers at you, specifically regarding stadium votes in the coming weeks. Next week, we'll be back with a more normal version, I think, and more streamlined and more less likely to piss people off. Yeah, distracted, live, not live version of One World Away. We can't thank you enough for tuning in every week. I know that we say it every week. We really mean it, though. If you guys want any more content from us, we do have a really good interview with Joel and JJ Piccolo, the Royals general manager. That's up on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Some content from our trip down to Arkansas when we saw the Royals versus the Naturals in the exhibition game, some clubhouse locker room interviews and stuff like that. Thoughts from there directly from players, big league, minor league, and alike. Up there on our Twitter account at One We're Away KCSN. You can follow Joel at JT Penfield. You can follow Josh on Twitter or X at, is it Josh Keiser 4121? There's a number at the end, right?
Just 40.
40?
Yep.
Okay, 40. Josh Keiser 40. Me at Foote Noted, if for whatever reason you're into that, at FOOTE Noted. Until then, thanks again, and we'll talk to you next week.